in Loyalsock State Forest. It's just not compatible with any of the other uses. So, why are our people upset? I think we're upset in part because all of us that live in the counties here, we're beginning to see what gas drilling is all about, what the Marcellus play is all about. And it's not play, of course. The noise, the lights, the truck traffic, the wrecked roads, all of the rest of it. We're just beginning to see it's the industrialization of rural Pennsylvania in the Marcellus area. There's just no other way to look at it. And I think that's going to happen regardless. So I live 10 miles north of town here. I got a couple of gas wells that I can hear already. There are going to be lots more. We've only seen just the beginning. Our part of rural Pennsylvania, much of rural Pennsylvania, is going to be sliced and diced by pipelines and well pads and all the rest of it. There's no question about it. So, subsequent administrations have spent a lot of money and done a lot to try and promote Pennsylvania's wilds, the Pennsylvania wilds. Well, Pennsylvania wilds are going bye-bye. That's all there is to it. The only part of the Pennsylvania wild that's going to be left, if it's going to be left, are going to be our big blocks state forest. The Loyalsock State Forest, the Sproul State Forest, Tioga State Forest, Wyoming State Forest. Those are going to be the places, they'll be the wild places and the only wild places left in Pennsylvania. We're bird people. Lots of our favorite birds. They can't live in Williamsport. They can't live on my farm. They got to live in big, solid blocks of forest. And you've got biologists, you folks know that. There's no way that you can safely drill a place like the Loyalsock and protect these species. You can't do it. The very fact, it doesn't really matter how you drill it. The very fact that you got to cut roads into it, you got to cut pipelines through it, you got to put
Sir,
wells
5 minutes, I'm sorry, and thank you. Look, as a matter of fact, with this line, even doing the math, we have the room until 6, and thank you.
No, we're not going to say
1 minute.
that.
Well,
One
I
minute.
actually didn't realize that you just stood up. I apologize.
One.
I seriously, just 1 minute. We have a lot of people that want to speak.
1 minute. Here's what my organization recommends that you do. It's been mentioned numerous times that you have a greater level of control on the 18,000 acres of the Clarence Moore Tract. Exercise that control. If Anadarko wants to take you to court, let's go to court.
Yeah.
Let's fight it. Let's put DCNR's attorneys on it. One
All
minute.
right, but you see the people behind you. Thank you. I have to ask the gentleman behind you to get his turn now.
We'd
Thank
like to
you.
hear
Thanks for
him.
your time.
Thank you.
We'd like to hear him.
My name is James A. Schmid. I am a consulting ecologist. For the last 40 years, I've been involved in the trenches of environmental consulting in this Commonwealth and up and down the Mid-Atlantic states. I am speaking today on my own behalf as a landowner in Sullivan County in the Loyalsock watershed. I have been coming to this part of the Commonwealth for many years, and I would hope to come in the future. I have two very specific and somewhat technical questions to bring to the attention of this group from the DCNR this evening. One has to do with the identification of wetlands that are threatened by any gas development that may occur in the state forest tracts under consideration. I ask this because there is a formal process in this Commonwealth for determining jurisdictional wetlands that is run by the Army Corps of Engineers. The Department of Environmental Protection has no capability and is not in the habit of checking and delineating wetlands and boundaries. In my area of Sullivan County, the township road was being surveyed by the gas company, and wetlands were surveyed and streams within a 50-foot strip along the roadway. That did not look right. Several of the landowners requested a jurisdictional determination from the Corps of Engineers. After 3 days in the field, we got that determination from the Corps, who field inspected about 300 acres. And within the 50-foot strip along the roadway, which we had questioned initially, the extent of wetlands increased by 7 times. That's 700%. This is typical in the Endless Mountains of Pennsylvania, where there are no existing maps of wetlands, and they will not be determined unless they are looked at carefully and they are confirmed by the Corps of Engineers. My question would be, does the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources intend to have Corps jurisdictional determinations for all of the land that is being threatened by any type of development?
Yes, sir. We currently do on all of our lease tracts. Wetland delineations are required for every piece of infrastructure that is proposed, whether it's an upgrade to an existing road or a new right-of-way or a pad location, freshwater impoundment. All infrastructure does have wetland delineations that are associated with it that are conducted according to the Corps' 1987 manual and methodology that is laid out in that document.
And the regional supplements.
And so they all are submitted to the department as a consideration prior to approval. And they are done to a 300-foot extent around the well pads and linear features. So 300 feet outside of the limit of disturbance.
I'm glad to hear that. I think that should give the public some confidence that at least wetlands will be identified. The other concern that I have goes to the special protection waters that are common here, exceptional value and high quality streams. The Department of Environmental Protection has extensive protocols for determining the value of streams based primarily on macroinvertebrate populations. And to my knowledge, there is no monitoring of those populations that goes on before gas development and subsequent to gas development to identify the extent of degradation and any required restoration that might be undertaken or monitored. I do not know what the department's position is with respect to that, but as landowner, you certainly would be able to require the monitoring of macroinvertebrate populations as a gauge of stream quality throughout the gas development process. And my question is whether, in fact, you are doing that.
On a limited scale, sir, we are. We have a contract with the Susquehanna River Basin Commission where we have 13 SON locations set up in around natural gas drilling areas.
And how many of those are in this particular tract?
Well, there is one on Pleasant Stream, and we also have, as a part of our monitoring efforts within our monitoring team within the Bureau of Forestry, we are doing monthly sampling on, I think it's 10 stream locations. I'll have to get back to you. And then we also have SONs located in third order tributaries to Pleasant Stream and to Rock Run. So we are getting started on a baseline monitoring for macro and groundwater quality on the 25,000 acres.
That is very helpful, and particularly because any of the construction that is done in the headwaters of less than 100 acres drainage are all exempt from the Dams and Encroachment Act jurisdiction of the Department of Environmental Protection. So the only thing you can do is monitor what's happening, and I commend the department for doing that. And thank the department for having this meeting, which is, I hope, the first of many public meetings to share the information that the department gathers on this tract of land. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Schmidt, no relation to Jim Schmidt who just spoke. I'm the director of the Sierra Club Pennsylvania chapter based in Harrisburg, and I have to say I do appreciate the fact that you've held this first meeting for the public to actually give you our concerns and raise our concerns, and I echo Mr. Schmidt's reference to the need for additional public input meetings after we get access to the more information that the department currently has. I think the department has seriously underestimated the importance of the Loyalsock State Forest and Rock Run to the public in Pennsylvania, and I think today's turnout is a good demonstration of that. Today's meeting was held during the week while many people were still working, and this is the kind of turnout as a result of a daytime meeting. Imagine what would happen if it was held in the evening. I got in line to ask a question, and I'm going to ask that question, and comments from the Sierra Club will follow later. I want to know if the department is considering or will consider the use of oil and gas lease funds to purchase the mineral rights under the Loyalsock State Forest.
At this point, we have absolutely no idea what the value is. They have not offered to sell it. Again, there are two different distinct owners of the gas rights. If you want to give us an idea of what it's worth, we might entertain it.
I hope that the department will consider, prior to the Corbett administration, DCNR frequently used oil and gas lease monies to acquire mineral rights under what the department considered sensitive lands. And I do think that this is the kind of facility, this kind of location where the department should be considering that. And again, I understand if you were to deny them surface access, they would then sue you, and it might be considered a taking. And the taking of that land could, or those mineral rights, could be paid for out of the oil and gas lease fund.
I'll correct your misinformation, as happens quite often. The prior administration had taken all of the bonus money that was paid into the oil and gas fund and sent it all over Pennsylvania. It was not used for the purpose that it was intended. Since the Corbett administration has come in, this agency has been able to access additional and over the the statutory amount that this agency is allowed to use from the funds from that account.
With all respect, I understand that DCNR is now using oil and gas lease fund monies for operating expenses in the department, but I'm talking about the purchase of mineral rights to create permanent protection for areas we want to set aside.
We're open for any opportunities.
My name is Mike Shaw. I'm a member of BerksGasTruth.org, and I'd like to read a 3.5-minute prepared statement. I was raised in Pennsylvania's woods. I've spent more hours than I can count hiking its trails, wandering through its meadows, and paddling its lakes and rivers. Pennsylvania's watersheds has more continuous miles of rivers, runs, brooks, creeks, and streams than any other state except Alaska. Rock Run in the Loyalsock State Forest may be the most beautiful and wild of the remaining pristine streams. Its boulders have been carved by water from another time long before William Penn lent his name to Penn's Woods. As a teacher, it was part of my job to teach students the history of my state before extraction of its natural resources began and after. That history is full of tales of unmanaged removal and toxic practices, from the great timber boom which devastated Pennsylvania's forests to the coal boom which left vast landscapes of horribly scarred, desolate with gouges and tailings of abandoned strip mines, where to this day very little grows. Oil extraction has left hundreds of thousands of abandoned and orphan wells. Gas drillers assure us that drilling unconventional wells and hydraulic fracturing is perfectly safe because the millions of gallons of toxic chemical-laced water is being injected so deep that it can't possibly find its way back to our aquifers. This assertion should be a comfort to no one, as those abandoned and orphan wells, as well as the naturally occurring fractures in Pennsylvania's deep rocks, provide a perfect network of channels back to the surface. It is not a matter of if these toxins will find their way back to our watershed, only when. It is almost impossible to stop what is happening in our state at this point, although I do hope and believe that we will come to our senses before the toxic practices create more dead zones like the barren coal fields or the fume-choked town of Centralia. As stewards of the land, you, Mr. Allen, and the DCNR are in a unique position to do something courageous and heroic. Saving Pennsylvania's, saving Pennsylvania State Forest, and specifically the Rock Run area of the Loyalsock, will be recorded in state history as a moment of sanity, compassion, and common sense. We owe it to those who come after us to leave what was left to us better than we found it. To do that, all we have to do in the Loyalsock is leave it as we found it. Hold the bulldozers, the trucks, the cranes, and the chemicals at bay, and preserve the most beautiful and pristine places. No one needs natural gas bad enough to rip the heart from the Loyalsock.
My name is Dean Marshall. I live in Columbia County, and as usually happens when I let John Trello go ahead of me, he says what I want to say and beats me to the punch. This punch is that you don't own the gas, we do. You don't own the forest, we do, everybody in this room. So I'll go on with my statement. I'm concerned not only about the cumulative effects of continued fossil fuel extraction and use, but especially by the permanent changes this will bring to our few remaining natural areas. I was raised in a peaceful forest and farming area of Luzerne County and taught to respect the land and all the living things by my parents, who were raised on sawmills by their parents. Responsible use of our natural resources was always a priority. We moved to Western New York when I was 9. Growing up there was full of new lessons. By my 16th year, there was talk of pollution and a need to conserve our resources before it was too late. News of soaring cancer rates near Niagara Falls was, quote, leaking out, pun intended. This became the wake-up call that is known as the Love Canal catastrophe. Huge corporations, Dow, Hooker, and Union Carbide, have been dumping toxic waste into the canal for years. Now people were sick. People were dying. Everyone was outraged and investigations ensued. Each of these giant wealthy companies pointed to the others. Eventually, this led to the formation of the EPA, Superfund sites, Earth Day celebrations, and grassroots campaigns to clean up our environment and move away from gross polluting energy sources. My teenage friends and I organized a small group called Youth Against Pollution, and we recycled newspapers, glass, aluminum cans, and tried to clean up litter and dump sites in our town. We rallied for solar energy, wind power, and conservation. That was 42 years ago. What have we learned? Now we are overrun by even more powerful and wealthy corporations who feed our increasing addiction to energy and a plastic throwaway consumer frenzy that is literally and intentionally fueled by the greed of these profiteers. These collective corporate interests have spent billions of our purchase dollars just to research ways they can continue to lock us into ever more dependence on dirty fossil fuel and to thwart any and all incursion into their market by renewable energy innovations. In spite of their efforts, the tide is turning, albeit slowly. The fuels they cannot own or place an inflated price upon are gaining use up here and across the globe. That the time has come for them to invest in harnessing and delivering these inexhaustible resources is a no-brainer. Well, guess what? This has instead caused a panic in the hallowed halls of Exxon, Shell, Anadarko, and the rest. They are now spending even more to brainwash the very people who will suffer from the industrialization required to extract every last drop of dirty oil, every last chunk of carbon coal, and the very last gasp of global warming gas. They appeal to our patriotism and concern for the environment that they will certainly destroy for a prolonged profit. And the worst, most despicable reality of all of this is they will not be satisfied with our farmland and private leased lands. They want it all. They want our college campuses, our airports, churchyards, and even our last natural refuges, state parks, forests, wetlands that purify the water we drink and give us all a place to share and enjoy with our children. Places they may someday share with future generations, if there are to be any. I am not a Luddite by any definition. I'm a welder fabricator. I've worked in industry 40 years. I've worked on chemical tank rail cars, pressure vessels, process piping, and have experience as a welding instructor and supervisor. I can tell you right now that a percentage of the casing and pipeline welds will fail. Over time, that ratio increases, and you all know this. Anadarko knows this. A failure in the middle of a farm field is bad enough. A failure in the Loyalsock forest is a catastrophe. The risks to these pristine headwaters, these exceptional value streams and wetlands, are too great not to be heeded. The gas companies have over 20 applications pending to export Marcellus gas and the Utica, and then deeper and even more risky plays for contracts lasting the next 20 years. This proves that they already have plenty of domestic supplies without destroying our homes and our sacred refuges like Rock Run, Loyalsock Creek, or any other public lands. We say no. No, Anadarko, you do not get the Loyalsock. Keep it wild.
Hello, my name is Danielle. I'm here with Marcellus Shale Earth First. I was born in Pennsylvania. I've lived here for my entire life, and I have a love and admiration of the wild places here that I find difficult to even put into words. I'm not here to talk to you about facts of which you're all well aware. You know the risks and the dangers involved in the decisions that you're making. What you're not aware of, though, is that this decision, as Dean and Frank have already said, is not yours to make. It is the decision belonging to the people of Pennsylvania to protect these wild places for ourselves and for future generations. And when you undermine our decision, because our decision is no, we have said no, and it is resounding. And when you undermine that decision, what you accomplish is you bring a community of people together who otherwise might not have come together. You foster a community of resistance that did not even know it was there. You awaken a power within people that they did not know they had within themselves. There's a woman by the name of Emma Goldman, and she has a quote, and that quote is, "The people are asleep. They remain indifferent. They forge their own chains and do the bidding of their masters to crucify their idols." If you allow Anadarko to do this, you are asleep. You are forging your own chains. But fortunately, the people of Pennsylvania are awake, and we have said no, and we will be there with our bodies on the line to tell you and to tell Anadarko that we will not allow this, and we will say, keep it wild or get out.
I'd like to make this a mix of questions and my comments, if that's allowed during my time limit. My name is Shelley Northrup. I come from the borough of Sayre, located in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. I have hiked with a Pennsylvania hiking club, and I'm a driving member of one New York State hiking club based in the Southern Tier, which is comprised of 50-50 PA and New York State members. I've also hiked with several other New York State clubs, and I can say they all like to come to Pennsylvania. They hiked a lot in Pennsylvania, but I can see already, just due to the traffic, heavy traffic related to the infrastructure, they've stopped. They haven't stopped, but they definitely have decreased their coming to this state and also spending their, I guess you could call them tourist dollars. My one question I have that's very easy to answer is your presentation online? I think it would be a good idea to put it online.
Yes. Yes. So our first webinar is accessible online through the Penn State Extension Office. Thank you.
Penn State Extension, okay.
Yeah, and we will put this on our website as well.
Okay, thank you. I would also like to repeat what several other people have already said, because it's a point worth driving home, is that I encourage the DCNR to please have additional public meetings in a variety of locations and at a variety of times to try to accommodate as many people as possible. And I would ask that you also consider a legally advertised public comment period that would allow all people to comment on the use of their public lands, and all users, not just members of the Commonwealth, citizens of the Commonwealth, but all users of public lands, because there are many people from other states that come to enjoy these treasures. I have some questions from your presentation. You mentioned a 50